over and over and over and over again with no rebuttal about the illegitimacy. I mean, I may mention the fact that you say it, and people say this like this is terrible. It's racial, but if I don't rebut it by telling you why it's wrong, it begins to sit in your consciousness. It sits in your head, and you end up coming to a place where anytime something comes up and somebody says something about the race impact of it, the race effect of it, anytime that happens, you will get a reaction in yourself, where you'll say, yeah, they always make this like a racial thing. Why is it always a racial thing? It's a neutral thing. They even try to give you the impression that the internet is neutral, that it's not race-based at all. It's called raceless. Wear that term for a minute. RACE-LESS, raceless. Now, are you really so poorly wired that you think that there's something on this earth that's raceless, especially in the United States? Do you really believe that?
No way.
See, so since I know you don't really believe that, that means that you're not only conning me, you're conning yourself. And you need to stop doing that. So we're going to try to help you unwind the craziness. So as with many of the technologies that have emerged over the last century, the internet's racism was actually programmed right into, or its racism was programmed right into the development of the internet. When I say programmed right into, I mean that the policies and practices that bias the way the internet forms, so that what, for example, is perceived as normal, the internet has its own characterization of what it perceives as normal. Anything that does not fit into that characterization is literally referred to as abnormal. Now, right. I want you to wear this. It's important that you get this in your spirit. That's my my pharmacy calling, telling me that I got something that I ordered that I didn't pick up yet.
I got to pick mine up.
There you go. I'm not the only one. Yeah. See, we're kind of normal here.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be the new meme. We'll be instead of Peppy the Frog, it'll be normies.
I think that is the new meme.
Who, Peppy the Frog?
No, normal. What is normal?
Yeah, but that really is important. That we understand this context. The internet frames what is normal. And because the internet frames it that way, and that's what you are basing your searches on and your perception of what's being lifted up on the internet, it begins to wire you in your inner man. Go ahead.
What I see, Mr. Here, is the internet, or not even the internet, but the media, which includes the internet, is so powerful that the mere mention of something and so many ears hearing it, it stays in your mind. Just like our children, our children, as they listen, they become, indoctrinated to the ideas that are sent out by the media and the internet, and they think that this is reality, even when it may not be.
And Norm, you're hitting right on something.
It is.
Right? Because how things are framed and how you engaged with how things are framed conditions your thought process.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. You all know that I'm an older person. You all are like 4 years old, and I'm way, way, way older than that. So I've seen parts of the world that you all never seen. When I was in elementary school, I think I was in the 5th grade, I had a social studies book. It was a history book. And inside the cover, the very first thing on the inside cover, not even the page, but the inside cover, was a depiction of the 4 great races of human beings. This is a history book. So it sounds normal, right?
4 great
races of human beings.
Okay.
And so the first one is a guy who's in a business suit, a white guy, hair combed, nicely cut, briefcase in his hand, and it says Caucasian, founder of modern civilization.
Wow.
That's what it said.
Wow.
The definition of the white person
with a briefcase
and his suit and his tie was that he was the founder of modern civilization.
Yeah.
So by definition, whoever is not in that meme of being a founder of modern civilization is somebody who wasn't a founder
Right.
of civilization, which means you founded something that was more primitive than modern civilization, that was more backward than modern civilization, that you had not progressed all the way forward into becoming competent enough to be a founder of modern civilization. So the second player was a sort of a Mandarin-looking guy, you know, with the clothes with the big shoulders, you know, that stretch out 6 feet, you know, from each shoulder, you know, with the great big mustache and the goatee and, you know, the trimmed, you know, beard, you know, and, you know, just the puffy, you know, clothes and so on, and the shoes, you know, that the toes turn upward, you know, you know what I'm saying. See, y'all laugh, right? But you could have made a lot of money selling gym shoes to people in the Middle East, because it'd be a lot easier for you to dribble a basketball if your toes were on the ground rather than your toes turned up. I'm just saying that might be why you don't see that many East. Never mind, it's another. That's just stupid, right? But my point.
That's a great analogy, sir.
My point is, this fellow was referred to as the Oriental, and he was the founder of the great Chinese civilization, and inventors of gunpowder.
Wow, I didn't know that.
That was his. Oh yeah, gunpowder.
I was thinking peace and wisdom, but you come with
No.
gunpowder.
They didn't put peace and wisdom in there.
Oh wow.
That was reserved for the founders of modern civilization. You know, but inventing gunpowder, that was in there, right? So then there was a third person. This person had on sort of a buckskin kind of, you know, clothes, you know, with the little braided tassels coming off the arms and, you know, along the sides of the legs, and, you know, made out of deer skin, and he had a tomahawk, you know, and
Indians.
No.
Okay.
Talking about the early pioneers he's speaking of.
Okay.
No, you're right. It was the Indian. I was just teasing you, right? Yeah, that was the Indian, you know, with his hatchet, you know, or his tomahawk and his bow and arrow and his quiver, you know, and so on. And he was a hunter that roamed the plains of North America. Now, I was in the 5th grade. I think I was like 7 years old, because I was 2 years ahead of the other kids. So I think I was 7 years old in the 5th grade. This is what I'm getting as my history book.
Right.
This is my foundational studies.
Right.
This isn't even telling me about what's true and what's not true.
Right.
This is just assumed true. This is like the sky is above and the ground is below.
Right.
What goes up must come down. It was that kind of truth.
Yeah. When we get to our people was basically savages.
you wanted to hear about our people. Well, let me tell you what the book said about our people.
I know it is savages.
Because it actually mentioned you. It said Willie H. And then underneath this Negro man, excuse me for the word Negro, but that's what they called him. That's what the book called him.
Go for it.
Right? For this Negro man out of Africa, right? And it's actually said primitive,
right? That's the word.
And not a founder, or something to, I don't remember the exact words, but something to the effect of not a founder or a principle in the development of modern civilization.
Almost animalistic category.
And homeboy had a bone through his, you know how women had this jewelry they put through their nose.
Yep.
Don't ask me why they do it, but you know, in Africa, you know that's normal. But it means something in their context in Africa. I don't know what it means here when women put this jewelry in their nose that goes right through the nose. But whatever the case, they do that. You know, you got stuff in your ears. You know, your earrings.
Yep. Tattoos.
Tattoos. You're writing all over your bodies. I never understood that. And I understand that we did it in our homeland. I'm not objecting to it. I just don't understand why in today's world you are bothering to write on yourself.
Well, it seems like they're going back to that because everybody's got stuff in their nose and their ears now.
Something's wrong, but I'm just trying to help you understand this social studies book, this history book that I was given. That was the 4 great races of men. the modern Caucasian developer of civilization, the Chinese developer of the ancient, Chinese civilization and the Great Wall of China, and so on. The Native American roamed the plains of North America, and then there's that black guy,
Right.
the slave, the complete. We're not even sure he's a human being, but we're just going to mention him here because we are getting money out of him. So, you must be human if we're getting money out of you.
Descendants of monkeys, something like that.
That's what I mean by how systemic racism occurs. The people who wrote that book, the people who put together what they called scholarship and put it into that book, they thought that what they were saying was fundamentally sound, that this was the fundamental baseline truth of the United States.
You know what, Mr. Hare, this was, and I don't know when that book came out, but it was racism way back then. Something like that today couldn't even be published today.
This is racism on steroids.
Yeah, I mean.
But if you published that book today,
couldn't be published.
There'd be fistfights all over the country.
Yeah.
Okay? You couldn't do that, right? There's a paradigm called the Overton window. Go ahead.
But I'm going to ask you after.
So the Overton window is essentially a framework of what's acceptable in public discourse. In the old days, there were words that you couldn't say out loud, right? You could hint at it, but you couldn't say the word out loud. Now, take the N word, right? As an example. Mm-hmm. In today's world, you can't say the N word out loud in front of people because folks would feel, ugly about that, right? So that would be defying the Overton window. But you can say other things like, well, no black people developed any guns. Where's there a gun manufacturer in Africa? Find me one. Not a single one. Swiss people develop guns. German people develop guns. Polish people develop guns. English people develop guns. How come no African people develop guns? Therefore, that becomes an indictment on African people that you didn't develop weapons of mass destruction. Doesn't that say something to you?
Yeah.
What does that say to you?
That does say something.
That you indict a people because they did not develop weapons of mass destruction. You indict them. And the people that developed the weapons of mass destruction, you lift them up as if they're the moral compass. They're the ideal, of humanity. I got off on a tangent, but that just struck me. But my point in trying to help us understand systemic racism is the kind of systemic racism that I gave you in this example. That's how history has been taught, in this country. Well, the internet is basically being created by people with the same kind of orientation. It's not that they think when they're doing what they're doing to develop the internet, they're not thinking in racial terms. How do I use this to beat up yellow people? How do I use this to beat up, gender, whatever the word is for different kinds of gender people and so on? Or how do I use it to harm, black people? They're not doing that. They're just developing paradigms that allow them to be able to sift through information and connect you to the information that you say you want.
Right.
So
it's called algorithms.
Algorithms.
And they found out that people of color, they feed TikTok. They were saying people of color, they feed, and I don't know, it could be our fault, but they feed us trash.
Right.
And then their people, they feed knowledge and anything that's helpful for growth.
Well, keep in mind, everybody gets to use the internet.
Right.
So if white people are using the internet to get to gather information for their purpose, whatever search phrases that they use to connect to whatever websites they are connecting to, you have the access to the same information.
That's correct.
You can do the exact same thing.
That's correct.
So that's not racist, okay?
Right.
But racists can use the internet to further inflame or enlarge their racist agenda.
Right. Correct.
Okay.
And they do.
That's what's going on right now. Okay. So I know that, you got the Republicans who are really trying to show certain populations in this country that they're strong on defense because they're anti-China. Like being anti-China means something in terms of your fundamental policies as a country. You wouldn't let Germans just walk into the United States, without identifying themselves, without going through some process. You wouldn't allow that. So that's no big deal because you claim that you're anti-Chinese. Why are you anti-Chinese? What are the Chinese doing that you are so upset about? Well, we already know the answer to that. The Chinese have the audacity to be growing their own economy.
Mm-hmm.
Making that money.
How dare they?
Right.
How dare they?
Don't we owe them money, Mr. Hare?
Billions. In fact, hundreds of billions.
Wow.
Okay. We wouldn't be able to run our country if we didn't have some Chinese money, helping to borrow to be able to pay our bills and so on.
Wow, that's heavy.
Right. So it's really important that we understand what the algorithm game is, not what the internet is.
Right.
I think we understand what the internet is, and the internet of itself is passively neutral. In other words, people put stuff, it's not even that the internet creators put stuff on the internet. You put stuff on the internet.
We do.
Okay?
We do. Right.
So since the entire humanity, 8.5 billion of us, are putting stuff on the internet, okay, it doesn't matter if the racial-oriented people are putting stuff on the internet. They're doing the same thing that the anti-racist people are doing. They're spreading their message, on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
What you have to become competent at is being able to recognize what is being placed on the internet that is sound, that is true, and what is being placed on the internet that's BS. So in my postgraduate program, we began to spend a lot of time talking about how you vet your information. So you make sure that you're not repeating nonsense. Because some of the sites you go to, like it's Reddit, or Stormfront, or someplace like that, you can't use that as your source. You might learn from them about a source,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to go to that source and vet the source. You have to go and read that source and find out where is that source getting its information from. Now, if they're getting that information from the National Institute of Health, you should be able to go to the report that they're quoting. You should be able to find that report on the internet, read it, and see for yourself whether or not what the NIH report said and what the internet user said, were they the same thing? That's how you vet your sites. When you find a site is repeating things or saying things that when you vet it, they turn out to not be true at all. They're actually making that stuff. They have a saying. They pulled it out of the place where the sun doesn't shine.
Mm.
Yeah, they pulled it out of that place. Once you find out that a site does that, then you stop going to that site.
Right.
If you stop going to that site, the internet will stop picking that site up and sending it to you when you do an internet search, because it's only going to give you responses that seem like they are talking about what you seem to be interested in. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the things that I use when I do my searches is look at what comes up and then what doesn't come up. And what I find is that the things that people most look for on that particular subject, those are the things that come up quickest, So like the first 20 things you see that come up basically are the things that were asked or that people looked at first when they searched on that topic, right? So that gives you an idea not of how the internet thinks, it gives you an idea of how the people who are using the internet, how they think. And that's where this systemic racism and the algorithm stuff comes into play. Systemic in the sense that if the model, the construct is based on the idea that the United States is normal, that Caucasian Americans are normal, that Judeo-Christian religion is normal, and so on. and then you have a source of information or an object of information that does not fit those three characterizations that I just made, then by definition, they are abnormal. So it means you can be a citizen of the United States, been here since 1700 in your family line, and you are still considered to be abnormal in this country. Somebody who got here from Russia, from behind the Iron Curtain 4 or 5 hours ago, but they brushed their teeth, combed their hair, put on a suit, and walked out, into a job interview, they're normal, in American society. That's what's crazy. And that's what we have to figure out how we deal with. And I'm not sure I can give you a framework or a solid framework of how we deal with that, but we do have to deal with it.
Yeah.
That has to get done.
Yeah.
Right? You remember when the Charlottesville situation happened, and they had the alt-right group marching, down the streets of Charlotte talking about Jews shall not replace us. Excuse me. Jews shall not replace us. When I heard them saying that, I asked my wife, I said, honey, what are they talking about? What do Jews have to do with replace? What does that mean? And she said, I don't know, honey. They're just crazy. I said, they're saying something. We can't just say it's crazy. People are listening to this, right? So I had to go search it out. Their ideation is that this is the Hitler kind of ideation, that the Jews were trying to take over the country and become the dominant people in the country and push Caucasian people out. Now, that's strange to me because in my mind, Jews are Caucasian people. So how can this be a race thing?
I guess they don't act like them, or they don't have the same mindset. I think that's what it is.
Well, actually, it's even deeper than that. The Jews in the minds of the Europeans. I don't know about today's Europeans, but say the Europeans in 1000 BC, 500 BC, 200 AD. To the Europeans in that time period, the Jews were not Europeans. They were either considered to be Africans or whatever, the Mesopotamian, the Fertile Crescent, the north eastern corner of Africa. That's where the Jews are from.
Oh, they were people of color too. So some of them.
Where is Palestine? Palestine's not in Europe. Palestine's in Africa.
Yes, it is people of color.
Right.
You're right.
Right. So when they were kicked out, when the Persians conquered them and kicked them out of Samaria, that's what Israel had become called, kicked them out of Samaria, they pushed them into Iran, into Iraq, into Afghanistan, but then they were pushed even further into Romania, into Poland, all the way into Germany, and so on. And so the Europeans who were there, the European Caucasians, they didn't look at the Jews as other Europeans. They looked at the Jews as those Southern people, more akin to the brown-skinned people or the black-skinned people. In fact, the word gypsy comes from the term Egypt, because the Europeans misunderstood who the gypsies were. They thought that the gypsies were Egyptians that migrated from Egypt into Europe through Bulgaria and Romania and so on. Mm-hmm. But that's not true. The gypsies, they got the name from Egypt, but they were actually people that were more from the land of India, northwest India, that had migrated all the way across the European steppes into Eastern Europe and then into Central Europe.
Right.
So it's important for us to understand these distinctions. This meme of Jews will not replace us, it extends all the way back to that race characterization that the Jews were not really like us. We're real white people from Europe. And those Jews, they're dirty white. Whether they're white or not, they're not from us. They're from the South. And they're from that dusky versus or even black type people. They looked at them that way. That premise or that orientation still exists amongst Europeans today, and most of the white folks who are race-based oriented people don't even realize what their racism is based on. They tagged on this anti-Christian thing, that the Jews killed the Christ. I don't know, because you all may not do a lot of stuff they call it reading,
right?
Like reading the actual book. But if you actually read the actual
Christ
book,
was a Jew.
You will see that not only was Christ a Jew, the Jews didn't kill Christ.
Right.
The Italians killed Christ.
Uh-oh.
You don't hear anybody talking about that, do you?
No, nobody's going to say that. It's probably that's probably a no-no for us.
Pontius Pilate was a Roman prelate.
Yeah,
he wasn't a Jewish prelate. He was a Roman prelate.
Yeah.
Right? He was an anchor for Rome, the kingdom of Rome.
Hold up, let me be devil advocate though. Yeah, they did but it was the Jew. They say, well, who you want?
Right, the Jews did the judging.
So the Jews did kind of
they owe. We should slap a few. They owe. How dare you, right? But they judged the Christ on the terms that existed in that time.
Right.
In that time period, working on Sunday was a problem. Whatever, getting baptized outside of complete immersion in the water, that was a problem.
Give us Barabbas.
Right. So they said, give us Barabbas. He's a thief, but he's a Jewish thief.
Wow.
He's a Judaism believing thief.
Right. We don't know about this Christ guy, this Jesus guy.
What's he talking about?
What is he talking about?
Talking about he's the fulfillment of the word. We're not feeling that, right?
Right.
So I understand.
Yeah. And I understand too.
They've wired all of these memes, but these memes are wired around the core reason for the antithesis that these European descended people have towards Jews is because they don't see the Jews as fellow white people. They see the Jews as being something other than white, even though they look white. They got brown hair, blue eyes, and fair skin, just like Ashkenazi, whoever. But the race-based white people don't see the Jews that way. They see the Jews as different. And it's this kind of baked in normalization of stuff that really should not be normalized that's baked into the internet.
Right.
And that's something that we have to think about how we address. But listen, we got to take care of our sponsors because we got to keep paying for the program. So don't go away. We will see you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY.
Protect his home and family from disaster, Steve used courage, wisdom, and his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan Hare, your host. We're here with Norm MacArthur, who is our in-studio audience of one. Welcome back, Norm.
Mr. Hare.
And we're here with our citizen, the first citizen of the 21st century, our engineer, Willie H. How you doing, Willie?
How you doing, everybody? Welcome to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare.
So I was talking about how these algorithms work in terms of how they drive people towards like a nest of different websites that actually confirm, if you're race oriented, they help to confirm what's already inside your head, right? And I refer to it as confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is when instead of looking for what is true, you look for what supports what your particular vision is or your view is or your understanding is on a particular subject. One of the things, to give you an example of this, of how the internet, although it is itself a passive instrument, but it can be used and is being used to amplify white racist kind of messaging. You all hired a person. I know, Norm, you always act like you weren't there, but you hired Donald Trump. Don't say you didn't. You were there. You were there. I saw you at the polling place. You were there, right? Hiring this guy. Donald Trump repeated white nationalist talking points when these white nationalists were defending the statues of America's slaveholders. Think about the way I articulated that. Before, you would hear that of these statues of war heroes, right? You know, these Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson and all these, they were war heroes. But doesn't it feel different if I describe them as statues to slaveholders?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That has a much different connotation to it, right?
Yeah.
Systemically, then, if you changed your wording about how you refer to something so that you don't make the thing seem normal or seem like it's a natural thing or an honored kind of thing, calling somebody a war hero, you know, call somebody an exemplar of Southern heritage, you know, talking about them that way gives a certain honorific to that person.
You know,
but if you talked about that person as a statue to a slaveholder, that gives a different connotation.
Negative.
Go ahead.
Mr. Hare, it is just amazing how powerful not just the internet is, but the media in general. You know, when you go ahead and you allow the media, the internet, to put something out, the power it has by people just hearing it, being resaid, and before you know it, it becomes a truth, even though it may not be.
And think about that, what you just said. Let's apply what happened at the Charlottesville, South Carolina. You know, what happened there. When the day after that rally began in Charlottesville, they had another rally, and it got out of hand because you had, you know, some Antifa type people, you know, other kinds of protesters, sort of shouting back, you know, at these white racists. That got into, you know, spitting in the face, and before you know it, there's a couple of fist fights. One guy got so wired up, he jumped in his car and he ran his car into a crowd of protesters, injured seriously 19 of them, and killed a woman. Right? Now, that was based on somebody getting wired up, you know, about all their emotion, their emotional stake they had in defending, you know, what they claimed was, you know, Southern heritage or white heritage and so on. But that was in 2018. That a situation became a meme that ran throughout the internet. I mean, anytime you talk to somebody about Charlottesville, all these Reddit and Stormfront and Breitbart and so on kind of websites come up, all giving you the right-wing spin, you know, on that, reconfirming in your head, you know, what they say happened and what was true and what was not true. That orientation, that meme, that spark turned into a brush fire that turned into a flame that erupted on January 6th, 2021. That January 6th, 2021 insurrection was a direct result of that Charlottesville rally that turned into the murder of that young woman. The important thing that I'm trying to get people to understand is that's what algorithms do. The people that were following what went on in Charlottesville they were their web search connected them to a number of websites, but some of them were websites that connect you to the dark web. You know, the people that were doing this insidious stuff. When you went into that website, then they were giving you like 19, conspiracy theories. Oh yeah, and Dr. Fauci, he eats children, and
Wow.
you know what I mean.
Wow.
That sort of crazy.
Yeah.
Not even that's insulting the word crazy. To use that word to describe these people's behavior. But my point is that all of this stuff got incubated, magnified, given a sense that there must be truth to it because we find so many websites that are repeating the same things. This must be true. Everybody's talking about it.
Right.
This is really what happened. We got to defend ourselves. We got to fight. We got to join together. Where's my AR-15? You got any more Uzis from the old days when, those, I mean, it's almost like that now. I don't know if you remember the little Tommy guns, where the thing that held the bullets was like a round, just crazy and whatnot, right? But this is what incubates all of that. It's important for us to understand there are consequences to this, and the only way you can defend yourself is you have to be disciplined enough to look at where information is coming from. If the information does not source itself to something that you can actually check, you can actually count, you can actually see, you can actually evaluate, then you should set that information aside. Just discard it as just noise and don't pay it any attention at all.
Mr. Hare, I'd like to, if you don't mind, kind of take us away from the internet aspect. If we could go back, before the internet, I guess our internet was books, newspapers. This was our media.
Right.
Now when I because I wanted to say that to come back to something because it just kind of resonated with me. You told us a story not long ago about the first book you read.
Yeah.
It basically, it's just on my mind.
It spoke to you, didn't it?
And I was hoping that you could, because see, this is the power. I wanted to be known. This is the power of suggestion, or in the power of suggestion, this is what comes from the internet.
And how it influences the way that you think, the way you reason.
Yes, sir.
Now, I learned to read when I was about 2.5 years old. That's when my mother started getting me to learn how to read. So
Yes, sir.
by the time I came across this book, I was like 4 years old. And I had been bugging my mother, for weeks, Mama, you always keep giving me these books and whatnot. I never see anybody that looks like me in these books. How come there's never anybody that looks like, and I took it as I was blaming her. Seriously, I was blaming her.
How old was you, Mr. Hare?
I was 4.
Wow, that's incredible.
But you got to remember, by the time I was 4, I was already into the 3rd volume of Zane Grey's Western.
Mr. Hare is incredible.
Wow.
And I mean,
Wow.
really.
Well, when you learn how to read and you're 2 years old,
Wow.
what else are you going to do except
reading?
except
No,
read?
You gotta advance.
I don't know, Mr. Hare. That sounds a little. 2 years old reading?
Right. I mean,
that's
you start reading when you're 2 years old.
okay.
You don't really
He's putting
conceive
everything
all of
together,
the words.
putting things
Right.
together.
Wow.
But you learn how to articulate what you see. You create phonemes.
Right,
You're
right.
able to enunciate words and
Yes,
so
sir.
on.
Right.
And it becomes the way you become wired in your mind. Your thought process begins to wire itself around the coding that is embraced in words.
Yeah, so you was woke long before we were. I probably
Don't
was-
make me woke because you have Ron DeSantis coming out.
Not that kind of woke. We ain't.
I can't be that kind of woke. Call me arisen. I was arisen.
Risen. Okay.
But the point of this book. Let me give you the story, and then I'll help you with how I saw it. This was a story where there's a family, black family, sitting at a table. They got the plates out, silverware out. Mama's over there near the stove. Mama says, "Oh man, we need some butter. We can't do these pancakes without the butter." So Playboy, whose name is Sambo, the book's title is Little Black Sambo.
Oh, wow.
Now
Yeah.
this couldn't even exist today. I mean, there's no way that something like this could even be published.
This was childhood literature,
Yeah.
at this time.
Yeah.
My mother thought she was doing me a favor because she found me a book that had a black face on the front of it, right?
Wow.
She hadn't read the book, but she just assumed, blackface, you're blackface.
Right.
We got rhythm here. You're going to stop bothering me now.
Right.
Let's roll.
Right.
And so she thought she was doing a good thing, and she was doing a good thing. So little black Sambo volunteers to go get some butter. So he races off to the store, goes through the woods, gets to the store, buys the butter, heads back to the crib, and lo and behold, a tiger shows up.
Ooh.
Now, I know where you all live, you have tigers and elephants and bears and, but I've never lived in woods where there were tigers in the woods, right? But that was the game, in this book. So the tiger starts rolling at little black Sambo, and he starts to run. Tiger starts to chase him. Tiger's running, he's running, and eventually little black Sambo runs around a tree. The tiger runs around a tree. And little black Sambo runs faster and faster. The tiger runs faster and faster. But little black Sambo runs faster still. And then he says, I'm skinnying up this tree. He skinnies up the tree, and the tiger didn't see him. The tiger went into suspended animation until little black Sambo got to the lower branches of the tree. And then the tiger woke up again and started running around the tree again. I don't know what happened, because most of us would have thought that the tiger would have caught little black Sambo by now. But this is the story. So the tiger's still racing around a tree, going faster and faster and faster, and he melts.
Who melts?
The tiger.
The tiger melts?
He melts, and he becomes this yellow, buttery-looking stuff on the ground. Little black Sambo sees, oh, man, danger's past. He steps over the melted tiger and sees his little pail that he had the butter in, and the pail was empty. Butter had fallen out of the pail. But he sees this yellow tiger here. It's yellow, just like butter. So he scoops up some melted tiger into his pail, and he comes home and drops the pail on the counter. And then mom pours out the little, pancake things. They flip them over, and everybody gets some pancakes, and they put some yellow stuff on the pancakes. And they all say, yum, yum. Their tongues lick all the way to their ear, and so and so on. I can't tell you how offended I was.
Wow.
I can't express to you in words how deeply, I mean, deep inside of me, like somebody had torn something inside my spirit. I wanted to fight so bad. I just ready to erupt.
What age was you?
I was 4.
4 years.
Wow.
So my mother comes home from work. She usually get home around 5:20. I'm waiting for her. I said, Mama, did you read this book? And she says, no. I said, Mama, read this book. And I handed her the book. I had many words in it, right?
Right.
Read this book. She reads the book, and she looks at me, and she starts crying. She says, baby, I'm so sorry. I had no idea what was in this book. I promise you, I will never get you a book again that I haven't read before I give the book to you.
Wow.
Because she saw because I was provoked. This was as if you were saying that I was this person, as if I was such a stupid person that I would believe, that you could run away from a tiger, number one, you could race around a tree, the tiger would melt, and I would pick up the melted tiger and pour it on my pancakes and eat that stuff and have my mama go, yum, yum.
Who was the author? Did you find out?
I don't remember who the author was, right? But it was such a vulgar to me. Now, other people read the story, and it was, like a little fairy tale,
Yeah.
They all took it that way.
Yeah.
But I didn't take it that way. So my point is that this is how systemic issues work. This is how systemic racism works.
Yeah.
Because you have people who are defining stuff that you are reacting to, who are defining things in a way that is anti-you.
Yeah.
But you don't have any
But
defense.
expect this to be us.
Right.
Expect this to be us, and for us to be accepting of this. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yep.
That's how come you cannot just look at the cover of a book. You know what I mean?
Right.
You read.
You
that
got to
book,
read the book.
and and then you'll understand what it is, what the book has in it. You know what is based the messaging, what it's trying to tell you.
So I just want people to understand that it's hard for us to say here's what systemic racism is and point out every example of it, you know, in the universe.
Right.
What I can do is help you understand how to see systemic racism. So if here's an example of systemic racism. If I decide that slavery is illegal, but I also decide that it's illegal for you to be a vagrant, for you to be standing around in a city, leaning up on a wall with no job, I say that that's illegal too. So what I do is I create a condition that was not illegal, make it illegal, convict you of it, and then put you into a penal context, which makes you a slave, even though supposedly there is an amendment to the Constitution that abolishes slavery. But I still put you back in slavery. I use vagrancy laws that I created to put you back into slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Systemic racism
Yeah.
at its finest.
At its
Well,
finest.
let me just ask, being incarcerated even today, in a way, would you consider that a form of slavery?
All incarceration is enslavement.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I want you to understand. That's why I keep driving us back to read the source
when you-
documentation.
Yeah.
The source documentation for this point is the 13th Amendment, which says that slavery is abolished in these United States. But there's a comma after that, not a period. There's a comma, which means that there's more to the sentence.
Yeah.
The rest of the sentence says slavery is abolished except as a punishment in consequence of being duly convicted of a crime. So slavery is legal as a consequence of being convicted of a crime.
Right.
Right.
So we're saying that slavery is illegal, but it really isn't.
Right.
It's slavery is only illegal under some circumstances.
It was a way to make it legal. Yeah,
Right.
you know, and
It was a way for
and
you to be
continue.
able to say
Uh-huh.
that you had made it illegal.
and when you look at it, who's mainly in these prisons?
Who's in the, exactly. Okay.
Right.
Now, I find it intriguing that you would imprison any white person and make them a slave as a consequence of them being convicted of for a crime. I find it like you all would do that. You would do that to your own people. And the answer is yes. In fact, if there were no black people here, all those people that we got doing those slave jobs in this country,
Yeah.
white people would be doing those jobs.
I believe
Right.
that.
And
I
as,
believe
as
that.
you say,
I believe that.
everything boils down to self-interest.
Everything.
Everything boils down to self-interest.
Everything.
So they're gonna wind up making money one way or
Or
another.
the other.
They've been lying about slavery was terrible for the past 500 years in North America. 500 years they've been saying slavery is terrible, terrible, terrible. But we still have slavery going on in the United States right now.
Mhm.
We still have discrimination going on in the United States right now. We still have apartheid going on in the United States right now. We still have racism going on in the United States right now. If it was such a terrible thing, why is it that in 500 years you've not been able to eradicate it? Because you don't want to eradicate
No,
it.
not at all.
Because it's not in your spirit. What's in your spirit is doing these abominable, vicious, vulgar, horrible things to other human beings and profiting from it.
Do you have any idea how much money
Oh
is
my
raised
God.
by the imprisonment
I'm sure it's a lot.
of our people, and not just our people? Let's just say the slavery in general by incarceration, due to incarceration.
I don't have a number for that, but I did a study. This goes back to like 1970. I did a study of the federal prison system. And at that time, the federal prison system was making a profit of something in the area of $44 million a year from selling furniture and stuff that was made by people in prison.
Mhm.
That's just one small aspect.
What's small?
One
And
small-
so,
yeah.
so you're taking these people that are prisoners, you're not paying them any money. You're paying them like 4 cents an hour, or
Right.
6 cents an hour. And so you got that population. So it's not that much to feed them and to clothe them. You're not giving them, much of anything. And they're producing enough that there's a net profit, in 1970 money of $44 million.
And that's just the furniture aspect.
Right.
We ain't talking about license
Plates
plates.
and
We ain't talking about
everything else.
none of the things that come from the imprisonment
Right.
of people.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So I know we only got about 15 minutes. Let me just switch a little bit to another.
You got
So-
5 minutes. Mr.
Only
Hicks.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
I couldn't get to the other 10 minutes?
No.
So I just want to talk about the Trump effect on the federal court. This article written by Mark Stern. The Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals is where law goes to die. That's not my statement. That's what the article says. It's a place where the nation's most partisan jurists recklessly wield their power to enact hard right policy under the guise of judging. But even by the court's own dismal standards, this past Wednesday was I can't use the word they use, it was a vulgar word, of an epic and catastrophic proportions. A nightmare 3-judge panel heard the never-ending mifepristone case, which seeks to pull the abortion pill off the market in all 50 states. And here's the punchline. Nothing that these intellectual Lilliputians do will even matter. What he's referring to are these 3 judges. He's referring to them as Lilliputians. In other words, little tiny people. He says the Supreme Court has already decided that the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals cannot be trusted with this case. In April, it froze the court's previous decision stringently limiting access to mifepristone, expressly maintaining the freeze until the justices themselves take further action.
Wow.
In 2000, after a 4-year review, the FDA had approved mifepristone in combination with another drug, misoprostol, for medication abortion. The agency imposed stringent limits on the drug, studied it extensively, eventually finding that it was incredibly safe, incredibly effective. In response to these findings, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, had reduced barriers to mifepristone since 2016. It authorized the drug's use up to 10 weeks of pregnancy. It approved a generic version of the drug and reduced reporting requirements and stopped mandating that you had to have 3 in-person doctor visits. Because the drug was so safe, it was so easy to use, and it was so effective, it didn't make sense to have people go through a whole bunch of gymnastics to be able to access the drug. This thing was almost made available as an over-the-counter drug because it was that safe and effective. After the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, a group of anti-abortion activists created a group called the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine for the purpose of suing over mifepristone. They incorporated the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine in Amarillo, Texas. They did that so that the case would be heard in a court that had a judge that they knew was going to agree with them on the outcome. Because, judges are politicians too, right? And so Judge Matthew Kacsmaryk was a former anti-abortion advocate known for extreme, dangerous, and incoherent far-right rulings that they knew that he would be the one who would hear the case due to this jurisdictional loophole. So they sued, represented by the Christian nationalist hate group Alliance Defending Freedom. Kacsmaryk played his part. He issued an unprecedented and unhinged decision purporting to suspend the FDA's 23-year-old approval of mifepristone. With only 2 dissenting votes, the Supreme Court stayed Kacsmaryk's entire ruling, meaning that nothing he or the Fifth Court does to attack the drug will have any effect unless the Supreme Court does an about-face. So this Wednesday coming up, the FDA and Danco Laboratories, which tried to pull the Fifth Circuit Court back into the orbit of reality, it was a futile exercise. I can't go through all of the detail on this stuff, but you had things like what's the name? Oh, we're that far in? Okay. I can't give you all of this stuff right now, but I guess the closest thing that I can give you in the outcome here is that that essentially what you have is a takeover of the Supreme Court by Trump appointees. This one Judge Ho and the other Judge Elrod were appointed by Donald Trump, appointed for the purpose of doing everything possible to overturn Roe versus Wade, to make whatever decisions were possible that would undo the privileges that women had to control their bodies before or while or after Roe versus Wade. And so Kaczmarek's decision was like an unprecedented judicial assault. In her brief, she called the ruling far outside the bounds of established criticism. She was upset because one of the attorneys who was challenging her decision, she felt that attorney was being too stark in his criticism of her decision. But her decision was to undo something that was done by the FDA 23 years ago, and her decision wasn't based on any medical evidence. She's just saying that I don't like the approval process that you went through. I can't even tell you why I don't like the approval process, but I don't like it. And so I'm not gonna approve this drug. You don't get to do that. You already approved the drug 23 years ago.
Right.
The drug has been used year in and year out over that 23-year period. There's no catastrophic, there's no excess deaths, there's no injuries, there's no suffering. People are benefiting. It's working like it's supposed to work. What's the issue here? Well, the issue is I don't like it because it's a version of abortion, and I don't want that, to be done. Mm-hmm. So because I don't like your process, and the reason why she doesn't like the process is because the process proved that mifepristone was a safe and effective drug. Well, that must be a bad process then, because a good process would have found that mifepristone was going to make you sick and kill people. So because the process didn't turn into that, I'm saying it was a bad process. So I'm disregarding the result of the science entirely. That's what's going on right now. This is the effect of the Trump judges that were put on the bench during his administration.
Wow, this is really crazy, Mr.
Yep.
Hare. This is really crazy. Women can't even govern their own bodies anymore.
And so this works a lot like systemic racism works. In other words, you don't see it on the surface. When this decision came up, you didn't see people saying, well, I hate abortion so much that nothing you do that supports abortion will I allow to occur. They don't say that. They say, oh, there was a lawsuit that was brought, about this drug. They were concerned about the process on how this drug was approved in the first place. Let's hold the drug up and review the process and see if we're okay with the process. That's what Judge Kaczmarek is doing right now, trying to slow down the process, but holding it up so that people who've been using this drug to regulate their pregnancies would not be able to do so, probably for years, as they go on and on and on about what's good or what's bad about the approval process. So listen, folks, I see that we got the music on. Is that the cane that normally comes to grab me by the neck?
You like 4 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
4 minutes beyond.
But I'm trying to help you. I was waiting on your guest to show up.
Okay.
So anyway, I thank you all for listening to us. I know we're talking a lot of things on this program, but we're trying to help us understand the context in which the decisions that we have to make are made.
Could we come back to this subject on Monday?
We definitely can. Okay.
Thank you.
So if you all don't go away, we'll look forward to talking to you all on Monday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM, WBNY. We'll see you all then.